Ambassador Ji-won Park sat in the massive council chamber and felt very small. The room stretched upward for what seemed like forever, with seats arranged in circles that rose toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. Representatives from 200 species filled those seats, each one stranger than the last. Some had scales, some had feathers, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. Ji-won was one of only 5 humans in the entire room. She had dreamed of this moment for months. Earth had finally joined the Galactic Council after years of preparation. Humanity would take its place among the stars, learning from civilizations that had traveled space for thousands of years. Ji-won touched the translation device behind her ear and smiled. Today was historic. Council Premier Vexthor called the session to order. He was an insectoid being, tall and covered in dark blue chitin that gleamed under the chamber lights. His 4 arms moved in graceful patterns as he spoke, and his voice came through the translator as smooth and calm. "Today we discuss trade agreements with the Kresh Empire," Vexthor announced. "They have requested expanded access to council markets." Ji-won leaned forward with interest. She had heard the name Kresh before, but knew little about them. A massive form appeared on the central holographic display. The being stood at least 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin, powerful limbs, and eyes that seemed to look right through the display at her. 4 tusks curved from its jaw. The nameplate read, "Overlord Zarketh of the Kresh Empire." "The Kresh control 17 star systems," Vexthor continued. "They possess significant deposits of quantum crystals and rare metals essential for faster-than-light travel. They seek to increase trade volume by 40%. Several council members spoke in favor of the agreement. The Kresh had resources everyone needed. Their empire sat on important trade routes. It made economic sense, they said. Ji-won noticed that many species seemed uncomfortable, shifting in their seats or avoiding looking at the holographic display, but none spoke against the proposal. "Ambassador Park," Vexthor said suddenly, "as our newest member, what does humanity think of this proposal?" Ji-won stood, her heart beating fast. "May I ask a question first, Premier?" "Of course." "What are labor acquisition practices?" Ji-won asked. "I saw that term in the Kresh file summary, but the translation seemed unclear." The chamber went very quiet. Vexthor's antennae twitched in what might have been surprise or concern. Several council members looked away. "Perhaps we should discuss this in private session," Vexthor suggested. "I would prefer to understand now," Ji-won said politely but firmly. "We are voting on expanded trade, yes?" An avian being with golden feathers stood from her seat several rows up. "I am Uranel of the Kixari flock," she said, her voice gentle. "Labor acquisition means the Kresh take prisoners from conquered worlds and force them to work. It is slavery, Ambassador Park. The Kresh are slavers." Ji-won felt her stomach drop. "Slavery? And we are discussing trade expansion? The Kresh Empire has practiced their labor system for over 2,000 years, Vexthor explained, his tone patient like a teacher with a confused student. "It is their cultural norm. The Council does not interfere with internal cultural practices of member states or recognized empires." "How many?" Ji-won asked quietly. "Pardon? How many species have they enslaved? How many beings?" Vexthor hesitated. "The exact numbers are difficult to confirm. Approximately 47 species are currently part of their labor system. The total population is estimated at 900 million individuals. 900 million slaves." The number was too large to understand. Ji-won's hands shook as she accessed her datapad and pulled up the full Kresh file that had been available to all council members. She read quickly, her face growing pale. 12 species completely extinct, billions dead in conquest wars. children taken from families and raised in work camps, beings who had never known freedom, whose grandparents had never known freedom, and the galaxy traded with them, sat in councils with them, called them partners. "Ambassador Park?" Vexthor prompted. "Your vote on the trade expansion?" G1 looked at the holographic image of Overlord Zarketh. He seemed amused, as if watching something entertaining. She thought of Earth's own history, the slave ships crossing oceans, the camps where millions died, the plantations and mines and factories where human beings had been treated as property. Humanity had fought wars to end those things. They had promised themselves, never again. "No," G1 said clearly. "No," Vexthor repeated. "Humanity votes no on any trade expansion with the Kresh Empire." G1's voice grew stronger. "In fact, we vote no on any trade with them at all." Several council members made sounds of surprise. Overlord Zarketh's image flickered, and his expression changed from amusement to something darker. "Ambassador Park, I understand this is your first major session," Vexthor said carefully. "But you must understand galactic realities. The Kresh are a powerful empire. They control resources we all need. We cannot simply refuse to engage with them." "Yes, we can," G1 said. "And we do." "Your species is new here," Zarketh's voice boomed through the chamber. "You do not understand how things work. Perhaps in time—" "We understand perfectly," G1 interrupted. "You are slavers. You have killed billions. You have destroyed entire civilizations. And you expect us to smile and shake your hand and call it diplomacy." "This is most irregular," Vexthor said, his antennae waving rapidly. "Ambassador, perhaps we should discuss this in private." "There is nothing to discuss." G1 gathered her things. "Humanity will not negotiate with slavers. We will not trade with those who commit genocide. We will not pretend that horror is acceptable just because it is old." She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. As she passed Overlord Zarketh's holographic display, he extended his image's hand as if to shake hers. G1 looked at it, then at him, and kept walking. Behind her, she heard confused discussions beginning. Voices rose in concern, surprise, and some anger. She heard Iranel say something in a sad voice. She heard Vexthor calling for order. G1 did not look back. Outside the chamber, she leaned against a wall and took deep breaths. Her hands were still shaking. She had just insulted a powerful empire in front of the entire council. She had ignored centuries of diplomatic protocol. Earth's leaders might be furious with her, but when she closed her eyes, she saw 900 million slaves. She saw 12 extinct species. She saw the smug expression on Zarketh's face as he expected her to go along with business as usual. No, G1 thought, not us, not humanity. Some lines cannot be crossed. Her communicator buzzed. It was Secretary General Choi from Earth. G1 took another deep breath and answered the call, ready to explain everything. The galaxy might think humanity was naive. They might think humans were inexperienced and foolish. They might think Earth did not understand how things worked in the big, complicated universe. Let them think that, G1 decided. Better to be called naive than to become something that shook hands with monsters. Secretary General Sujin Choi stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's nations and felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. The emergency meeting had brought together presidents, prime ministers, and representatives from every continent. Holographic screens showed their faces, some angry, some worried, all demanding answers. The Council has formally requested that we participate in Kresh trade negotiations, Sujin announced. They sent this request to Earth directly, bypassing Ambassador Park. They believe she acted emotionally and without proper authorization. Did she? Asked the African Union representative, his face serious. No, Sujin said firmly. Ambassador Park acted exactly as her briefing materials instructed. When faced with clear evil, Humanity does not compromise. The question before us now is whether we stand with her decision or overturn it. For 3 days, Earth debated. Historians presented evidence from humanity's darkest chapters. Philosophers discussed the nature of evil and compromise. Economists warned about the cost of isolation. Military advisors talked about the dangers of making powerful enemies. Religious leaders from every faith spoke of moral lines that must not be crossed. Scientists reminded them that ethics should guide progress, not the other way around. Survivors of genocides and slavery gave testimony about what happens when the world looks away and calls horror acceptable. On the 4th day, Sujin returned to the council chambers. Jiwon stood beside her. Every seat in the chamber was filled, and the gallery held observers from across the galaxy. News of humanity's potential decision had spread fast. Many species wanted to see what the newcomers would do. Vexthor called the session to order. Secretary General Choi, Earth has had time to consider its position. We hope that cooler heads have prevailed. The Kresh Empire awaits your answer regarding trade negotiations. Sujin walked to the central speaking platform. She looked around at the hundreds of species watching her. Some seemed curious, some seemed annoyed. A few, like Iranel, seemed sad. Earth has made its decision, Sujin said. It is unanimous across all our nations and peoples. We will not negotiate with the Kresh Empire. We will not trade with them. We will not recognize them as a legitimate government. Not now, not ever, not while they practice slavery and genocide. The chamber erupted. Dozens of species tried to speak at once. Vexthor's antennae waved frantically as he called for order. "This is unprecedented," a crystalline being shouted. "No species has ever refused to engage with a major power." "You will isolate yourselves," another voice called out. "The Kresh will see this as an insult," a third warned. "You risk conflict." Sujin waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice was calm but carried throughout the chamber. "The council asks why we make this choice. You say we are naive, that we do not understand galactic realities. You are wrong. We understand perfectly. We have been where you are." She activated a display behind her. Images appeared, human images from Earth's history. Slave ships, concentration camps, mass graves, children behind barbed wire. The galaxy watched in silence. "Humanity has made deals with monsters before," Sujin continued. "We have chosen convenience over justice. We have picked economics over ethics. We have told ourselves that we must be practical, that we cannot afford principles. And every single time, we learned the same lesson. When you make one compromise with evil, the next compromise becomes easier." More images appeared. Wars fought to end slavery, liberation of death camps, truth and reconciliation commissions, memorials to the victims. "We drew our lines in blood," Sujin said quietly. "The blood of those who died in bondage. The blood of those who fought to free them. We made ourselves a promise, never again. We would never again pretend that horror was acceptable. We would never again shake hands with those who treat thinking beings as property." "But your species has only been in space for a few decades," Vexthor protested. "We have maintained galactic peace for thousands of years through careful diplomacy and pragmatic compromise." "You call it peace," Jiwon said, stepping forward. 900 million slaves call it something else. 12 extinct species cannot call it anything because they are gone. A small commotion occurred in the upper seats. Iranel stood, her golden feathers ruffling with emotion. "May I speak, Premier?" "Please," Vexthor said, though he sounded tired. 400 years ago, the Kresh invaded my species' homeworld," Iranel said, her voice shaking. "They took 2 billion of my people as slaves. The council advised negotiation. We spent 3 centuries negotiating for managed release. A few million freed here, a few million there. Even now, 600 million of my people remain in creche labor camps, our children born into chains. She looked at Sujin and Jiwon. The humans ask why we accept this. I will tell you, because we forgot we had a choice, because they made us believe that accepting evil was the price of peace, because after enough time, you start to think that this is just how things are. Other species began to speak up, hesitantly at first. A reptilian being admitted that his species had lost 3 colony worlds to the creche. An aquatic species said they paid tribute every year to avoid creche attacks. A mammalian species revealed that they had once tried to resist and were crushed so badly they never tried again. You all have submitted, Sujin said, not as an accusation, but as an observation. You have each made your compromises, and now you expect us to do the same. But we cannot. Not will not. Cannot. If humanity bends on this, we stop being who we are. Then you will face the consequences alone, Vexthor said. The Council cannot protect a member state that refuses to engage in basic diplomacy. We understand, Jiwon said. Trade agreements with other species may become difficult, Vexthor warned. The creche have influence over many trade routes and resources. We understand, Sujin repeated. The creche may see your refusal as a hostile act, Vexthor continued. They may respond with military force. The Council will not go to war to defend you if you bring this upon yourselves. We understand, both humans said together. Overlord Zarketh's hologram appeared, larger than before. Humans are children playing at diplomacy. You have no power here. Your fleet is tiny. Your worlds are few. You need the galaxy far more than we need you. You are absolutely right, Sujin agreed. We are small and weak and new, but we know who we are. Can you say the same? She turned to address the entire council. Every species in this chamber was young once. Every one of you had ideals once. Every one of you believed in something before you learned to be practical. We are not telling you what to do. We are not judging you. We are simply being who we are. If that means standing alone, then we stand alone. The session ended in uncomfortable silence. As humans walked out, several council members avoided their eyes. But a few watched them with something like curiosity. And in the back, Irenel wiped away tears with one wing. Later that night, Captain Minho Kang received new orders. Human fleet assets began moving, repositioning away from creche territory. They would not patrol trade routes that benefited slavers. They would not protect shipping lanes that carried goods built by stolen hands. The galaxy called it foolish. Humanity called it necessary. And in the darkness between stars, something began to shift. A question that no one had asked in centuries started to form. What if we did not have to accept this? Captain Minho Kang stared at the distress signal and felt his blood turn cold. The message was desperate, repeating over and over in 17 different languages. The Silmari were dying. How many ships do they have incoming? Minho asked his tactical officer. Creche war fleet, sir. 200 vessels. The Silmari have no military, just civilian defense satellites. They are a peaceful species, scientists and artists. They never hurt anyone. The officer's voice was tight with controlled anger. The creche are going to slaughter them. Minho knew why. The Silmari homeworld sat on top of massive deposits of iridium-7, a mineral essential for advanced energy systems. The creche wanted it. The Silmari would not give it freely. So the creche would simply take it and take the Silmari as slaves to mine their own world. What does the council say? Minho asked, though he already knew the answer. The creche have invoked Old Treaty 4471, claiming the Silmari system as part of their ancient expansion rights. The council is debating whether the treaty is still valid. The debate is expected to last 3 weeks. 3 weeks? The Silmari had maybe 3 days. Minho looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting. Earth's fleet was small, Only 50 ships in this sector. The Kresh had 4 times that number. A fight would be suicide. But doing nothing meant watching millions die. He thought about the orders he had received from Earth after the Council confrontation. Stand firm on principles. Do not compromise with evil. But also, do not start wars. Do not fire first. Do not give the galaxy a reason to call humanity the aggressors. Send a message to Earth Command, Minho said quietly. Tell them we are going to help the Silmari. Tell them we are not going to fight unless forced. We are going to rescue as many as we can. His communications officer looked up. Sir, we are not authorized to intervene in council matters without approval. This could be seen as an act of war. I know, Minho said. Send the message anyway. Then get me Ambassador Park. Ji-won's face appeared on the screen minutes later. She was in her quarters on the council station, and she looked exhausted. The past 3 months had been hard on her. Many species avoided her now. Some called her naive. Others called her dangerous. Captain Kang, she said, I saw the Silmari situation. The council will not help them. I know, Minho said. I am taking the fleet in anyway. We cannot fight the Kresh directly, but we can evacuate civilians. If we move fast, we might save a few million before the Kresh realize what we are doing. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, tired but genuine. They are going to be very angry with us. They already are. True. Do what you must, Captain. I will handle the council. And Captain, thank you for being human. Minho cut the connection and turned to his crew. All ships, maximum speed to the Silmari system. Prepare for evacuation operations. Weapons to defensive mode only. We do not fire unless fired upon. Our mission is to save lives, not take them. The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Council was still debating treaties and territorial rights. Ahead of them, the Silmari were broadcasting their final goodbyes to the galaxy. They arrived to chaos. The Kresh fleet was already in orbit, bombarding military installations. The Silmari had no weapons that could hurt the Kresh ships. Their world was defenseless. On the surface, cities burned. Launch all evacuation shuttles, Minho ordered. Every transport, every cargo bay, every available space. Pack them in. We will worry about comfort later. Human ships dove into the atmosphere. Shuttles landed in city centers, in parks, in schoolyards. Crews ran through streets, pulling Silmari families aboard. The Silmari were small, four-legged beings with soft fur and large eyes. They clung to their children and followed the humans without question. Kresh vessels are moving to intercept, Tactical reported. They are demanding we leave immediately. Keep loading, Minho said. They have not fired yet. But then they did. A Kresh destroyer opened fire on a human transport ship full of refugees. The transport's shields held for a moment, then failed. The ship began to break apart. Return fire! Minho shouted. Disable that destroyer! Human warships turned as one. Their weapons were precise, carefully targeted. They did not aim to kill, they aimed to protect. Railgun rounds tore through the Kresh destroyer's engines. Missiles took out its weapon systems. Within seconds, the destroyer was drifting, harmless, but intact. All Kresh vessels, this is Captain Kang of Earth's fleet, Minho broadcast. We are evacuating civilians. We will not fire first, but we will defend innocent lives. Do not make us choose between your lives and theirs. The Kresh commander responded with rage. You dare threaten us? You are nothing! We will crush you! More Kresh ships opened fire. The battle became a desperate dance. Human ships moved between Kresh warships and civilian transports. They took hits meant for refugees. Their shields burned and their hulls scorched, but they held the line. And all the while, shuttles kept landing, kept loading, kept lifting off with thousands of Silmari packed inside. We have 4 million aboard, the logistics officer reported. But there are 20 million more on the surface. Keep going, Minho said. Every life we save matters. The Kresh commander Velrax appeared on screen. He was massive, with scars across his face and murder in his eyes. You cannot save them all, human. Leave now and we will let you go. Stay and we will destroy you. No, Minho said simply. No? Velrax seemed confused by the word. We do not negotiate with killers, Minho said, and we do not abandon the helpless. You want to kill us? Then kill us. But we are not leaving. For a long moment, Velrax stared at him. Then he cut the connection and ordered a full assault. The next 6 hours were the longest of Minho's life. Human ships fought a defensive battle, never pursuing, never pressing advantage. They only protected. 3 human vessels were destroyed. 7 more were crippled. But the shuttles kept running. In the council chambers, Ji-Wan stood before hundreds of angry representatives. They shouted at her, called her reckless, demanded Earth recall its fleet. She listened to it all and said nothing until they finished. Then she spoke, her voice cutting through the noise. Captain Kang is not acting on his own. He is following Earth's principles. We said we would not negotiate with slavers. We said we would not watch innocents die. Did you think those were just words? Did you think we would not act on them? You are starting a war, Vexthor accused. No, Ji-Wan said. We are stopping a massacre. There is a difference. The Kresh have legal rights to that system. They have a piece of paper that says they can kill millions, Ji-Wan replied. We have consciences that say we must try to stop it. I know which one I prefer. The debate raged on. But in the Silmari system, the last shuttle lifted off. 4 million refugees had been saved. 16 million remained below, and the Kresh were landing ground forces. Minho looked at his battered fleet. Take the refugees to Earth territory. Get them to safety. What about the others, sir? His executive officer asked quietly. Minho had no answer. He had done what he could. But it was not enough. It was never enough. As the human fleet jumped away, carrying millions to freedom, the Silmari left behind watched the sky and wept. But they wept, knowing that someone had tried. Someone had cared enough to risk everything. And across the galaxy, billions watched the broadcasts. They saw humans fighting not to conquer, but to protect. They saw humans taking damage meant for others. They saw humans keeping their word. The galaxy had thought humanity naive. Now some began to wonder if naive was the wrong word entirely. Dr. Hejin Nam walked through Liberation Station and tried not to cry. The massive orbital facility that humanity had built in just 3 months now housed 4 million Silmari refugees. Temporary quarters filled every deck. Humans worked alongside Silmari to create homes, schools, and medical centers. It was crowded and chaotic and beautiful, but it was also breaking her heart. Hye-Jin was a xenopsychologist, someone who studied how different species thought and felt. She had come to Liberation Station to help the Silmari refugees process their trauma. What she found there changed everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. In one section, she met a young Silmari named Pellin. He clutched a small child and stared at the walls with wide, frightened eyes. The human soldiers came from the sky, Pellin whispered. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand anything. They just took us and ran. My daughter asks me why. I do not know how to answer. Because it was the right thing to do, Hye-Jin said gently. But why did only humans do the right thing? Where was the council? Where were the civilizations that have existed for thousands of years? Pellin's voice cracked. We sent messages to everyone. We begged for help. Only Earth answered. Hye-Jin had no good answer for him, but his question stayed with her as she continued her work. She saw it in every refugee she spoke to, the confusion, the gratitude mixed with deeper questions about why gratitude was even necessary. She began compiling data, not just from the Silmari, but from records of every council species. She studied their histories, their psychological profiles, their cultural evolution. What she discovered made her call for an emergency presentation to the council. Jiwan helped her arrange it, though many council members did not want to attend. Still, enough came, curious about what the human scientist had to say. Iranel was there, sitting in the front row with several other representatives from smaller species. Hae-Jin stood before them, her hands shaking slightly. "I have been studying trauma response across species," she began. "Specifically, I have been looking at how civilizations react to persistent evil they feel powerless to stop." She brought up charts and brain scans and cultural analysis. Every species in this council has encountered evil, slavers, genociders, conquerors, and every species has faced a choice: resist and die or accept and survive. Most of you chose survival. That is not a moral failing. That is evolution. A reptilian council member hissed. "You are saying we are cowards?" "No," Hae-Jin said firmly. "I am saying you are traumatized, and trauma changes how brains work across all species. When you cannot escape danger and cannot fight it, your mind adapts. It makes the danger seem normal. It tells you that accepting evil is wisdom. It convinces you that anyone who resists is naive." She pulled up more data. "You have not evolved past emotional responses to evil. You have suppressed them. You have convinced yourselves that you are being pragmatic when you are actually dissociating. It is a survival mechanism. And it worked. You survived. But you also forgot something." "What?" Vexthor asked quietly. "That you had a choice," Hae-Jin said. "That you were not powerless. That collective action could change things." The chamber was silent. Then Iranel stood, her feathers trembling. "I would like to invite all council members to visit Liberation Station, to meet the refugees, to see what is possible when someone chooses to act." Over the next 2 weeks, hundreds of council representatives made the journey. They walked through the station. They met Silmari families. And they met others. Because Liberation Station had become something more than a refugee center. It had become a beacon. Escaped slaves from across the galaxy heard about it and made desperate journeys to reach it. They came in stolen ships, in broken shuttles, in cargo containers. They came from creche labor camps and from other empires that practiced slavery. A Chixari representative named Tixal arrived at the station with his aide. They walked into the avian section, expecting to meet Silmari. Instead, they met Chixari. 60,000 of them, all escaped slaves. Birds with golden feathers like Tixal's people, but with brands on their wings and scars on their bodies. Tixal stopped before an elderly Chixari female. She looked at him with milky eyes and asked, "Are you from the home world?" "Yes," Tixal whispered. "I am a council representative. I speak for our people in the government." "I have never seen the home world," the old female said. "My grandmother told me stories. She said the sky was blue there. Is that true?" "Yes, the sky is blue. My grandmother was taken as a child. That was 140 years ago. I was born in the camps. My children were born there. My grandchildren." She touched his wing gently. "Did anyone look for us?" Tixal could not speak. He could only shake his head. Tears ran down his face as he met dozens more. Young Chixari, who had never flown in open sky. Children who did not know the songs of their people. Entire generations born into chains. Later, he found Iranel in an observation deck. She was staring out at the stars, her own face wet with tears. "You knew," Tixal said. "You knew there were more of our people out there." 600 million more, Iranel said softly. "Still in the camps, still waiting for rescue that never comes. Why did you never tell us?" "I did," Iranel said. "Many times. The council said we must be patient. that we must negotiate, that we must accept reality. She turned to look at him. We paid for our freedom with centuries of other people's suffering. We told ourselves it was the only way, and we believed it because the alternative was too painful. Tixall sat down heavily. What do we do? I do not know, Iranel admitted, but I know we cannot keep doing nothing. Similar scenes played out across the station. A crystalline being met members of his species who had been taken 3 centuries ago. An aquatic species representative discovered thousands of his people bred in captivity for labor. A mammalian diplomat broke down when meeting children who spoke a broken version of her language, taught by great-grandparents who barely remembered freedom. Dr. He-Jin documented it all. She watched as council members confronted the reality they had ignored. She saw their faces change as they understood what acceptance of evil really meant. And she saw something else. She saw them start to get angry. A meeting formed spontaneously in Liberation Station's main hall. Representatives from 83 species gathered, all from what the galaxy called minor powers. Small worlds without much influence, species that had always felt powerless. Humanity showed us something, Tixall said, addressing the crowd. They showed us that we have a choice, that we do not have to accept this. But we are small, another representative protested. The Kresh are powerful. Other slaver empires are powerful. What can we do? We can refuse, Iranel said, standing. We can refuse to trade with them, refuse to recognize them, refuse to pretend their evil is acceptable. They will threaten us, someone warned. Let them, Tixall said. What is the worst they can do? Enslave us? They already do that. Kill us? They already do that. The worst has already happened. We are just too afraid to admit it. The movement grew quickly. Within days, 20 species announced they would no longer engage in trade or diplomacy with slaver empires. Within a week, 50 more joined. The Moral Coalition, they called themselves. The Kresh Empire watched with growing concern. So did other empires that relied on forced labor. They issued threats, they positioned fleets, they prepared for military action. And then came the ultimatum. Kresh Overlord Zarketh addressed the galaxy directly. Humanity has 7 days to close Liberation Station and return all property to its rightful owners. If they refuse, the Kresh Empire will consider it an act of war. We will destroy the station and everyone on it. Secretary General Choi received the message while meeting with Captain Minho and Ambassador Ji-won. They looked at each other, already knowing what they would say. We do not negotiate with killers, Su-jin said quietly. We knew this moment would come. Now we find out if we truly meant what we said. Minho nodded. My fleet will defend the station. We cannot win, but we can buy time for evacuations. No evacuations, Ji-won said. If we run, the Moral Coalition falls apart. Everything we have built ends. We have to stand. They looked out at Liberation Station, at the millions of lives depending on them, and prepared for war. Across the galaxy, 83 species made the same decision. They would stand with humanity, together. Captain Minho Kang stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the Kresh war fleet approach. 2,000 ships, the largest force the Kresh had assembled in a century. Against them, humanity had managed to gather 100 vessels. Even with the element of surprise, even with superior tactics, the math was simple. They would lose. All ships report ready, sir, his tactical officer said quietly. Crews are at battle stations. Minho nodded. He had sent messages to every human ship, giving them a chance to withdraw. Not one had taken it. They all knew what they were protecting. They all knew what they stood for. Open a channel to the Kresh fleet, Minho ordered. Overlord Zarketh's face filled the screen. He looked pleased, like a hunter who had cornered wounded prey. Captain Kang, I am almost disappointed. I expected more resistance. Now, will you surrender the station, or will we take it by force? Neither, Minho said calmly. We will defend it, and you will not take it. Zarketh laughed. A deep rumbling sound. You have 100 ships. I have 2,000. Your mathematics must be very different than ours. Our mathematics account for things you do not value, Minho replied, like courage and conviction and the knowledge that some things are worth dying for. Then you will die, Zarketh said. I gave you 7 days to surrender. That time is up. Humanity made its choice. Now live with the consequences. The Kresh fleet moved into attack formation. Human ships positioned themselves between the fleet and Liberation Station. Inside the station, 4 million Silmari and thousands of escaped slaves from dozens of species waited to see if the galaxy would let them live or watch them die. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Tactical reported. Sir, we have incoming FTL signatures. Multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace. Minho's heart sank. More Kresh reinforcements. This was truly the end then, but the ships that appeared were not Kresh. Identifying incoming vessels, the sensor officer said, his voice rising with excitement. Sixari merchant fleet, 240 ships. They are taking up position around the station. What? Minho stared at the display. The Sixari were civilians, traders, and transport vessels. They had no weapons, no shields strong enough for war. They were just putting themselves between the Kresh and the station. More ships arrived. Tixal's species sent their entire commercial fleet. A crystalline species brought mining ships. Aquatic species arrived in water-filled transports. Mammalian worlds sent colony vessels. Within minutes, over 1,000 civilian ships surrounded Liberation Station, forming a living shield. Iranel's voice came over the general broadcast. Overlord Zarketh, you want to reach Liberation Station? You will have to go through us first. You are civilians, Zarketh sputtered. This is not your fight. You are wrong, Iranel said. This is exactly our fight. Our people are on that station, our children who were stolen, our families who were enslaved. You want them back? Come and take them. But know that every shot you fire at that station will hit our ships first. Tixal's voice joined hers. I am Tixal of the Chixari flock. 140 years ago, your empire took my great-grandmother. You took millions of my people. You said we belonged to you. Today we say no more. We stand with humanity's principle. We do not negotiate with slavers. More voices joined, species after species. Some had been enslaved by the Kresh. Some had paid tribute for centuries. Some had simply lived in fear. All of them had decided that enough was enough. We are the moral coalition, they said together, and we stand for those who cannot stand alone. Zarketh's face twisted with rage. You are all fools. I will destroy every one of you. Then do it, Iranel said softly. Fire on unarmed civilian ships. Show the galaxy what the Kresh Empire really is. Show them why humanity was right to refuse to negotiate with you. The Kresh fleet held position. Firing on military targets was one thing. Destroying thousands of civilian vessels, killing millions of beings in front of the entire galaxy, was something else entirely. The political cost would be catastrophic. In the council chambers, Premier Vexthor watched the standoff on the main display. Hundreds of council members sat in stunned silence. This was unprecedented. A spontaneous coalition of minor species standing against a major empire. Not through military force, but through moral conviction. The situation has escalated beyond acceptable parameters, Vexthor said quietly. He looked old suddenly, tired. The council must act. A vote was called. For the first time in 2,000 years, the Galactic Council formally condemned a member empire. By a narrow margin, they demanded the Kresh Empire cease all military operations and enter negotiations for the release of all enslaved populations. "You cannot enforce this," Zarketh said when informed. "You have no military. You have no power." "No," Vexthor agreed. "But they do." He gestured to the display showing Liberation Station, showing the 1,000 civilian ships standing together, showing the 83 species who had found their courage. "You control trade routes," Vexthor continued. "You control resources, but only because we all agree to participate in your system. What happens when we stop? What happens when 83 species refuse to buy your goods, refuse to sell you supplies, refuse to let you use their space? What happens when the galaxy decides you are not worth the cost?" For the first time, doubt crossed Zarketh's face. The Kresh Empire was powerful, but it could not survive complete economic isolation. They needed trade. They needed access to council space. They needed the galaxy's cooperation. "You have 30 days, Vexthor said. "Begin releasing all enslaved populations and paying reparations, or face complete isolation. The choice is yours." Zarketh cut the connection. His fleet held position for 6 more hours, weapons charged, ready to fire. But slowly, ship by ship, they began to withdraw. The cost of attacking was too high, the political consequences too severe. The galaxy watched in amazement. A major empire, backed down by civilians and principles. Inside Liberation Station, millions of beings wept with relief. In the council chambers, representatives from across the galaxy sat in silence, processing what they had witnessed. And on the bridge of his flagship, Captain Min-Ho allowed himself to breathe. 6 months later, Liberation Station was renamed Freedom Station. It had become a permanent facility, the heart of the moral coalition. The Kresh Empire, facing complete economic collapse, had begun releasing slaves. The process was slow, painful, and often resisted. But it was happening. Ambassador Ji-Wan stood on an observation deck with Secretary General Choi, watching ships arrive with freed slaves every day. Iranel was with them, tears running down her face as she watched Chixari, who had never known freedom, see the stars for the first time as free beings. "We did not think it was possible," Iranel said softly. "We thought evil was too strong, that we were too weak." "You were never weak," Sujin replied. "You just needed someone to go first, to show you that resistance was possible." "Why did humans do it?" Iranel asked. "You were new. You had everything to lose. Why take that risk?" Ji-Wan smiled. "Because we have been where you were. We have lived with the shame of knowing we could have acted and did not. We have stood at memorials for those we failed to save. We promised ourselves that if we ever had the chance to do better, we would take it, no matter the cost." Below them, a new ship docked. Former slaves emerged, blinking in the light, holding their children, crying and laughing and free. Representatives from the coalition were there to meet them, to help them, to show them that the galaxy could be different. "The Council thinks humanity taught the galaxy something," Sujin said. "They think we brought some new wisdom. But that is not true. We did not teach you anything you did not already know. We just reminded you." "Reminded us of what?" Iranel asked. "That some lines must never be crossed," Ji-Wan said. "That some compromises change who you are. That evil only survives when good beings decide it is too hard to fight. You all knew this once. You just forgot, because remembering was too painful." Vexthor arrived at the observation deck. He looked different now, less certain, more humble. "Ambassador Park, Secretary General Choi, I came to apologize. The Council was wrong. I was wrong. We should have acted centuries ago." "Yes," Sujin agreed. "You should have. But you are acting now. That matters." "We thought humanity was naive," Vexthor said quietly. We thought you did not understand how complex the galaxy was, how many factors we had to balance, how impossible it was to act on principle alone." "And now?" Jiwan asked. "Now I think we were the naive ones," Vexthor admitted. "We thought accepting evil was wisdom. We thought compromise was strength. Humanity showed us the truth. Sometimes the naive choice is the right one. Sometimes the simple answer is the correct one. Sometimes standing for what is right matters more than being pragmatic." He left them alone on the observation deck. The three of them, three species who had found unexpected friendship in shared principles, watched the freed slaves begin their new lives. "Do you think it will last?" Iranel asked. "The coalition? The changes?" "I do not know," Sujin admitted. "Change is hard. Old habits return. Evil adapts. But now we know it is possible," Jiwan added. "Now we know we are not powerless. That is something that cannot be taken away." And across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings learned a new phrase, a warning that spread from species to species, that became common knowledge, that changed how the galaxy saw both evil and those who fought it. Galaxy warning. Humans don't negotiate with killers. It was more than a warning. It was a reminder that some species remembered who they were, that some beings valued principles over convenience, that some lines, once drawn, would not be crossed. And slowly, the galaxy began to remember these things too.